Now we're going to get down to the nitty-gritty of what Indians are all about.
I still say we Indian people are believers in the truth. This is the way of life that was given to your people. You're born an Indian, you're going to die an Indian. Indianness is a good life. You're facing an Indian this afternoon.
This week on Muskogee Vision, we caught up with a Creek citizen demonstrating medieval combat at Wizard World Comic-Con. We also have the unofficial primary election results, as well as a look at legislation to put a question on the November ballot for a constitutional amendment for free press at the Muskogee Creek Nation. And since it's election time again, we have another From the Vault segment. This time it's OK Indians, Vote. We'll have those stories right after this break, and once again, thanks for watching Muskogee Vision.
The way we present ourselves sends a message.
It can be the loudest voice you have.
Let your song ring out. We are still here.
Remind the world of your ancestors. Make them never forget the resiliency of Native people.
These are threads.
These are threads.
These are threads.
These are threads for the tread you make.
Welcome to Muskogee Vote. Let's begin. Today's category is Ready to Vote. What are Muskogee Creek citizens eligible to do when they reach 18?
Register to vote.
Correct. What step will allow citizens to actively participate in the Muskogee Creek Nation?
Register to vote.
Correct. If you are a Muskogee Creek citizen, age 18 or above, please register online or call for more information. And thank you for watching Muskogee Vote.
The unofficial 2019 Muskogee Creek Nation primary election results are in. These results will become official on Friday, September 27th at 5 p.m. Candidates that received 51% of the vote or higher in this race have won their contest and will not appear in the November 2nd general election ballot. In the principal chief race, David Hill received 1,272 votes, followed by Bim Stephen Bruner with 1,039 votes. The second chief race saw Del Beaver win the contest with 3,065 votes and 63.05% of the vote. In Creek District, Dean Hughes led the group with 1,819 votes, followed by Joseph Hicks with 1,492 votes. Darrell Proctor has won the McIntosh Seat A race with 3,180 votes and 68.64% of the vote. Muskogee District will see a runoff in the general election between Laura Harjo King with 1,891 votes and Mary Crawford with 1,707 votes. In the Okfuskee contest, Randall Hicks has won with 3,030 votes, or 65.64% of the vote. The Okmulgee District will see a runoff in the general election between Carmen Tecumseh Williams with 28.97% of the vote and Will Lowe with 22.18% of the vote. Anna Marshall will proceed to the general election for Tuggabutchee District with 1,638 votes, followed closely by Rufus Scott with 1,596 votes. Robert Huff has won the Tulsa District with 63.01% of the vote, and the Wagner District general election contest will see Charles McHenry with 44.17% of the vote face off against Deidre Soap with 29.47% of the vote. Barring any changes to these official results, the 2019 general election contest will consist of David Hill versus Bim Stephen Bruner for Principal Chief, Dean Hughes versus Joseph Hicks for Creek District, Laura Harjo King versus Mary Crawford for Muskogee District, Carmen Tecumseh Williams versus William Lowe for Okmulgee District, Anna Marshall versus Rufus Scott for Tuggabutchee District, and Charles McHenry versus Deidre Soap for Wagner District. Stick with Muskogee Vision for up-to-date information on Muskogee Creek Nation election.
September 6th through the 8th, Tulsa was host to the Wizard World Comic-Con. Muskogee Vision attended the con to catch up with the Creek citizen Heath Sutherland at a demonstration put on by the Armored Combat League.
We're here at a demonstration to kind of show off the Armored Combat League. It is like a bowling league, except really violent. And we wear full period medieval armor and weapons. We can't stab, so we're not killing each other, but they're blunted weapons, kind of like the one we got right here. And we're here to kind of promote the sport. Again, this is a national level sport that's been around for about 8 years. We go to other states and in the end eventually go to other nations to fight against Russia, Japan, other people in castles. So in the end, that's what really all of us go for glory. This gentleman over here that's on my team, he's been to Portugal and Spain fighting for Team USA. So it's a lot of glory, it's a lot of fun, and it really fulfills the kid in me that always wanted to be a knight. I had a friend by the name of Brandon Davis who we weren't exactly super friends, but we were on separate teams, and he realized I was really too violent for the LARPing that I was used to doing, and he fought against me on a different LARP team. Well, I got kicked out a lot, and the reason was I was too violent. Well, he hollered at me last year and said, I found a sport just for you, where you can be as violent as you want to be. And I was like, oh really? I'm gonna go check this out. So I went and checked it out, and realized that two of the gentlemen that own the league, both of them are like 50 and 52 respectively. If they could do it, I could do it. And so I decided to get into it. I was about 285 pounds at the time, and over the course of a year and a half, I'm down to 235 right now. The thing is that it's a great sport. It's a violent sport. It's kind of dangerous with these weapons, so it behooves you to be in shape, or else you might get hurt. Well, with Wizard World and really any demonstration, we're hoping to further the sport. The thing is that it's a small group of warriors that do this kind of sport. We're a tight-knit family, and we're always looking for more people to join our ranks because it's such a liberating and fun sport. Because once you've done this type of combat, everything in life is pretty easy. I call it my near-death experience I get to have every time I go fight somebody. And it's such a great thing, and I do believe that there are still warriors in the world. God makes warriors. And this is a great way for those people to take that to a healthy way. That's something personally for me, because I really like hurting things. This is my nature. And I know that I'm a warrior by nature. So it's better to take that energy out in a healthy way than take it home to my family, take it to something that doesn't deserve anything I want to give it. I find it a very healthy outlet, especially for that, and we got a lot of veterans in our sport. PTSD is an awful thing. It kills veterans all the time. And this sport helps them get as close as they can to combat without killing them, and it gives them an outlet. And I like preaching the sport because it really did a lot for me. I have been hurt. Not extremely hurt. I've had my foot almost broken. Usually it's feet, hands. I've had, of course, thumbs purpled. I've had behind one of my legs. I'm unarmored in certain spots behind my legs, and it's a viable target. You can get hit there. I was hit very hard, and I had a Charlie horse for about a month in that leg. I have a permanent scar in that leg from that shot. I hope that the sport keeps growing. I hope that it becomes a popular thing enough that people in high school can learn another thing, to use martial weapons and learn European martial arts that everybody has forgotten over the years. I just find it a really fun outlet, and it beats bowling, like I said, any day of the week. I went and wrestled at Greco-Roman Nationals. The Creek Nation paid for me when I was in high school. Thank you. I really appreciate everything you did for me.
Just a little bit of mustard on those. Stop fight!
Thursday, September 19th, the Muskogee Creek Nation Business, Finance, and Justice Committee passed unanimously legislation that would allow citizens to vote for a constitutional amendment for free press. This committee is made up of Representatives Robert Huff, Adam Jones, Travis Scott, Pete Beaver, and David Hill. The ordinance will go before the full council September 28th and would require a vote of 2/3 of the council to pass. If passed and signed by the principal chief, the question would then go before the citizens on the November 2nd ballot and would require an affirmative vote of 2/3 of the eligible voters who vote in the election. Citizens that want the opportunity to vote on the constitutional amendment are urged to contact their National Council representative and the principal chief. Muskogee Vision will have further updates in this developing story.
We ask, are you registered to vote? No. So if you're not registered to vote, you don't vote. No, I don't vote either. So we ask, why? Well, son, let me tell you, he said, I used to register, and I used to vote. As a matter of fact, in the Second World War, I voted for Roosevelt, and I was off fighting in Germany somewhere. Voted for Roosevelt. Then he came back, and he voted for Truman. Then he voted for Lyndon Johnson. Then he voted for the saint. He voted for Kennedy. And the streets still didn't get paid. So he said, you know what? I'm not going to register and vote anymore because nothing changes when I vote.
Just as Mr. Velasquez has pointed out, Indian people don't perceive that the election process works for them. Historically, American Indians have never got involved in the political process here in the state of Oklahoma. Indians weren't allowed to vote until 1924. Because of recent anti-Indian legislation, a statewide effort was initiated through the OK Indians Vote Project of the United Indian Nations in Oklahoma to motivate Indian people to become involved in the political process.
A canvassing kit should be made up of several items. It should have a canvasser's instruction sheet. It should have instructions on reminding the registrars what they should do in registering people using the affidavit. Each line should refer to...
Comprehensive workshops were conducted for delegates of 25 tribes in the state of Oklahoma for the purpose of implementing registration drives, identifying Indian voters and registrars. In an attempt to identify registered Indian voters, the OK Indians Vote Committee began checking individual tribal membership rolls against voter registration records, which identified voters as well as potential Indian voters that needed to be registered. An extensive public relations effort through the use of various media was implemented to provide the Indian population important information on the OK Indians Vote Project. Helen Chilaki, chairperson of the project, provides an overview for Native America Today viewers in the Oklahoma City area. Helen, it is a big political year here in Oklahoma, and Indian people more than ever, because of recent activities that you and I are well aware of, need to get involved in the political process, and your involvement in voter registration is probably the key. Your comments on that?
Well, at Creek Nation, we have always encouraged our Indian people to register and vote, and they pretty much have done that, but we have never recorded any statistics on it, and that's one of the things that we're in the process of doing right now, making up what I call my tough list, because without any statistics behind us, you know, people say, what have you to offer? Well, we can say we have this many voters, you know, that cares what's going on. And as I became more active in this, I found out that the other tribes across the state have the same concerns that we do, and they were doing things about it too, but there was not a coordinated effort. And by expressing this concern, and when we formed the United Indian Nations in Oklahoma, and expressing that concern, well, I was named chairman of the Voter Registration and Political Education Committee. And this is something that I really haven't had to do a lot of going out and getting people to work with me, because they're coming to me, they're wanting to do something about it. And the encouragement that that I'm getting from these people is I know that the whole campaign is just going to be a success. And we are working right now with 25 different tribes, and all of those tribes they're checking their membership list against voter registration list, and we're coming up with numbers. And a lot of the candidates in the upcoming elections, the ones that have already announced and the ones that are going to, have been contacting us because they realize the potential megaforce that we can become through our Indian bloc voting.
One of the objectives of the project was providing the Indian population candidate information. This objective was done through a candidate forum sponsored by UINO. Candidates for statewide election were in attendance, as well as representatives from 15 major tribes in the state of Oklahoma. The Indian people listened intently to the candidates' platforms and were given an opportunity to ask questions later in the forum. Danny Littleaxe, chairman of the United Indian Nations in Oklahoma, presided over the forum.
But I would like to welcome those of you that's representing the candidates. I'd like to welcome those of you that are candidates. We're here today to hear from you as candidates and what you can do for the Indian people in this state and for the tribal governments. We're concerned and have been concerned with many governmental type problems we've had throughout the state in the past few years.
I see a dual responsibility to the Indian people. That being the first responsibility is to educate themselves to the ways of the world and to the political system. Second, the biggest responsibility is to educate the world to the way of the Indian people. When these two responsibilities are accomplished, I think we'll see a positive change for the tribal governments in any kind of a state-tribal relationship.
Houston Ross is a tribal council member of Seminole Nation of Oklahoma, and he's been involved in organizing an Indian Voters League. He provides comments on participation at the community level.
I think the idea of voting is people out there in the backwoods, so to speak, taking interest as far as I can tell, and there's more registration that went on in our primary election, and we have, that I know of, is 2 Indian voter registers, and they're been out throughout our county and registering people. So I think they, as far as coming out to vote, enthusiasm is picking up. I think if we can keep it up and tell our people to get involved and that to be involved is important and for our cause, and that's what's going to take to relay our message to people in Washington or the representative from our county and states. And I think people are waking up to that this is important.
Duane Miller, chairman of the Seminole Nation Voters League and an employee of the Seminole Nation tribal government, comments on tribal government participation.
We felt a need to get our people together and get them registered and have some impact here in Seminole County. We estimate we represent about 20% of the county, but up until then we haven't had any type of impact. We felt we were passed over and we weren't included in the political system, Helen. And your organization was instrumental in getting us motivated, the UINO, and we talked about it. We had meetings in people's homes, and we felt that there was a great need to get our people together. The Seminole Nation has always been conservative in that we kind of keep to ourselves, but we felt that now was a time to branch out and get involved with the political system. So we organized and became fluent in the politics of the county, the state, and on the national level. Mr. Ross here has been instrumental in getting people from his area together, and we felt that the Indian people throughout the United States, throughout Indian country, are going to have to get involved. We can't be isolated anymore. Those days are over with. We've seen the impact that the political system has on us as Indian people. And if we don't stand up and defend our rights, then no one else will. And we want to put candidates in office that are going to be favorable to Indian policies and honor our treaties.
As the elections drew near, the United Indian Nations in Oklahoma held a statewide meeting to endorse candidates. Kelly Haney, a well-known artist and respected political figure, was one of the candidates endorsed by UINO.
Well, after serving 3 terms in the Oklahoma legislature in the House of Representatives, I decided with my experience that I would like to run for the Senate. As I did the first race in the House of Representatives, I did count on the Indian vote. I don't know how many people voted. I think that's still unknown, but I do know that a number of Indian people registered and that they did in fact go vote when they had never done it before. So I know there's a significant amount of votes there, several hundred votes, quite frankly. When I ran for the Senate, it included more than Seminole County, which is where the Seminole tribe of Oklahoma is, but also it includes the Sac and Fox tribe of Oklahoma. And they became actively involved in my campaign by doing those day-to-day type of functions that need to be done in order to win a race. I feel that the Indian tribes offer a significant amount of votes like any other special interest group. I think the major obstacle that Indian people face in becoming involved in politics is probably motivation, in the sense that for most Indian people who look at government, they say, well, they're not really looking at our interest. So one has to ask a question, you know, can government provide service to Indian people in state governments, particularly in county governments and school boards and so forth? And if so, how can they do it? And I think motivation is a real serious problem. When I ran as an Indian, they knew that I would have an interest in looking after their interest, and they had an interest in electing me. And so they registered and they voted. As many people have observed, and yourself in this district, as a result of my motivating and causing Indian people to register and to vote and becoming a bloc, a special interest group, if you will, in this area, many of the local races are now concentrating on the Indian vote. People who are running for state representatives, county offices, and there are more Indian people now interested in running for school boards. One of the problems that Indian people have in getting involved is that they don't understand how the process works within the state or county governments. Now, Indian people are not without experience in campaigning. I've been involved in tribal government, as you know, both as a councilman, as a planner and manager for the Seminole tribe, so I'm aware of the process and the procedure in tribal government. And most people concentrate their efforts there. What we're asking Indian people to do now is go into a larger circle, which includes state, county, school boards, that kind of, in city elections, city council elections. They have to understand that system and how it works and how things happen. The bottom line always, what can this candidate do for me, number one, as an individual, number two, as an entity of tribal government, or do they have the same interest that I do about any issue, whether it's education, roads or bridges, law enforcement, so forth and so on. And I think that's kind of where it's at. Indian people simply need to go through an educational process as to how one gets there, with training, seminars, workshops to help Indian people to get politically involved so that they understand not just to go register and vote, but that's the main part, but how to organize, how to work for a candidate, how to influence other people to vote for that particular person that you want elected. And that's what's happening in Oklahoma today. The Indian tribes in Oklahoma now are becoming a force, and we have been here all the time. The votes have been here all the time. It is now, people are actively involved in getting people registered, educating them to go vote, and so on, and becoming a bloc, and I think that's important. As my being in the legislature and being able to help and prove myself, prove to many people beyond Indian people that I have the ability to perform for them. What it does, I think in turn I have helped the tribe here to become more solid as a political force, because people know now they're behind me as a force. that other candidates are going to them as well. So it's working both ways, so I can help the tribe as well as the tribe can help me. There were 137 votes cast who came and apparently only voted in the Senate race and left. They didn't vote for the governor, they didn't vote for the representative or any of the county commissioners. They voted for the Senate. And that's what I'm running for. And that's due in part to many people, Indian people, who went out and asked these people to register and to vote for me. And that's due in part, as you know, to my mother, who is not absolutely fluent in the English language, but she's fluent in the native language, and she went around talking to people and asking them to come vote for me. And many people went with one idea, and that was to vote for me. What that converts in is it means that there's an opportunity for more Indian people to become involved in the political process, not only as voters but also as candidates. And the main thing that one has to look for, and I think that's what we look for in good government, is looking for a viable candidate who has the ability to perform for everyone to make sure that we make this a better government. And I think all I'm saying is Indians can do it too, you know, and that we're concerned with the same things every person in this state is concerned about. We're concerned about education, roads and bridges, jobs, business development, health care, on down the line. And our interest is no different. We do have a specialty in terms of tribal sovereignty, and we do need legislators and state legislative groups who support tribal sovereignty. I think when a person, be it Indian or otherwise, understands the importance of registering and voting, I think that's important. I think it's a step in the right direction, so many people don't vote. But for Indian people who have never voted in their life, who registered, who went to vote, and who voted for a winning candidate, I think makes a difference. Because they feel like their vote did make a difference. They are now part of the system. They can now call and complain to somebody if they have to. There's a legislator who is in the House of Representatives that I went in with the first year. He won by 6 votes. And as I tell many people, that's one good carload of Indians who are registered and who go to vote.
There's 180,000 Indian people in this state that are members of Indian nations. However, if we count the descendancy, 80% of the state of Oklahoma population is Indian. And out of the 180,000 enrolled members of Indian nations in this state, there's estimated that there's at least 60,000 eligible voters. And our goal was to register and count 30,000 of these voters for this next election. And I think we've come a long way in doing that. We still have some work to do. However, we have not given up and we will not give up.